Okay, Assalamualaikum.
Fadlina mendengar saya tak?
Doktor.
Alhamdulillah, okey.
Okay. Okay, so kita boleh start ke Doktor?
Boleh insyaAllah.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and selamat pagi kepada semua. Saya ucapkan selamat datang kepada Dr. Adibah untuk program UTLC online training pada pagi ni. Okay, terlebih dahulu saya perkenalkan dulu trainer kita hari ni. Trainer kita adalah Dr. Adibah binti Abdul Latif, pensyarah kanan daripada Universiti Teknologi Malaysia Johor, dan beliau merupakan pemenang bagi anugerah khas YB Menteri Pendidikan Malaysia reka bentuk kurikulum dan penyampaian inovatif ataupun AKRI pada tahun 2018 dalam kategori transformatif, pengajaran transformatif alternative assessment. Jadi tanpa melengahkan masa, saya serahkan sesi ini pada Dr. Adibah.
Okey, terima kasih.
Silakan Doktor.
Okey. Okey, saya member screen sekejap ni. Okey. Boleh nampak saya punya skrin tak?
Nampak Doktor? Okey.
Okey. Okey, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dan selamat sejahtera kepada semua. Terima kasih kepada saudari pengurusi majlis, Cik Fadlina ke Puan Fadlina? Okey, dan juga terima kasih untuk UUM ya kerana menjemput saya untuk berkongsi dengan semua pensyarah-pensyarah di UUM berkaitan dengan best practice in alternative assessment. Mudah-mudahan ia memberi manfaat. Jadi best practice ni sebenarnya dia bukanlah the best, tetapi dia kata orang salah satu daripada pelbagai praktis yang pernah dijalankan di peringkat akademik. Jadi saya kongsikan hari ini adalah berkaitan dengan alternative assessment in teaching and learning. Okay, jadi seperti yang diperkenalkan, saya Adibah binti Abdul Latif dari School of Education, Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, Universiti Teknologi Malaysia. Jadi sebelum kita pergi lebih mendalam ya berkaitan dengan best practice in alternative assessment, saya rasa mungkin ramai yang telah mengikuti kursus yang sebelum-sebelum ini. Saya dimaklumkan bahawa kursus ini adalah kursus yang berkala, bermakna terdapat banyak sesi, slot yang berkaitan dengan assessment ataupun alternative assessment. Jadi kalau kita perasan ya di Malaysia ini, perkataan assessment itu sebenarnya dia mula hadir pada tahun 2011 lah. Saya boleh kata 2011. Sebenarnya 2009 tu dah mula Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia pada waktu itu mengenal pasti bagaimana untuk kita ubah daripada exam oriented kepada sesuatu yang mungkin pentaksiran itu lebih valid. Jadi kalau kita perasan ya dalam buku-buku di Malaysia sebelum tahun 2011, mereka kebanyakan penulis dia tidak meletakkan perkataan assessment ataupun pentaksiran. Kalau lihat biasanya kita ada testing, measurement atau evaluation sahaja. Dan kalau kita baca buku-buku yang berkaitan dengan pengujian dalam bilik darjah sebelum tahun 2011, kalau kita lihat di dalam perkataan penilaian itu, kebiasaannya kalau kita nampak telah masuk beberapa konsep pentaksiran di bawah penilaian itu sendiri. Tetapi semenjak 2011 di mana kementerian mula untuk mengukur pelajar dengan lebih terperinci, dengan lebih detail. Jadi assessment datang ke situ. Di mana bermula tahun 2011 itulah kalau kita lihat ada perkataan pentaksiran berasaskan sekolah, school based assessment, dan kebanyakan publication pada tahun selepas 2011 di Malaysia, saya masukkan di Malaysia, sudah mula ada pengujian, testing, measurement, evaluation and assessment. Malah telah ada satu perbezaan yang besar yang dilihat antara penilaian dan juga pentaksiran. Di mana kalau kita lihat dia tidak digunakan interchangeably lagi. Bermaksud kalau kita kata penilaian itu lebih kepada sesuatu yang bersifat summative, lebih kepada sesuatu yang bertujuan untuk memberi grade ataupun penilaian akhir kepada pelajar, bertujuan untuk membuat satu decision making berkaitan dengan penempatan, nak beri award, nak beri persijilan, nak beri beasiswa, berbanding dengan assessment di mana assessment ini dia lebih bersifat proses, melihat kepada proses bukannya produk, melihat kepada sesuatu yang bersifat formatif dan tidak tertumpu hanya kepada summative. Jadi sebelum kita pergi dengan lebih jauh berkaitan dengan assessment, jadi saya rasa mungkin kita boleh refresh kembali bahawa assessment itu sebenarnya berasal daripada perkataan Latin iaitu assess ataupun assidia. Assidia bermakna to sit with, duduk di sisi. Bila kita kata duduk di sisi, jadi duduk di sisi ini bermakna duduk bersama-sama. Okay, duduk bersama-sama. Jadi bila kata duduk bersama-sama itu maksudnya kalau katakan kita ada anak, okey, kita tahu anak kita suka buat apa kelebihan anak kita, okey, apa yang perlu ditambah baik untuk anak kita. Jadi itu adalah duduk di sisi. Jadi kita mengharapkan juga sebenarnya bila kata teacher and student assessment, kita ada satu engagement. Kita nak satu benda yang engage but not empty. Okay, sebab banyak research sekarang dijalankan, aktiviti yang dilakukan di dalam kelas itu dia engage the student but it's empty. Bermakna kita buat projek yang menarik, kita buat aktiviti yang menarik di dalam kelas, tetapi pelajar hanya dapat yang menarik itu saja tapi tak dapat konten. Itu yang dimaksudkan students are engaged but empty. So kita tak nak macam tu. Kita nak bila kita kata assessment itu, kalau kita ada assessment method yang kita berikan kepada pelajar, pelajar bukan sahaja engage terhadap assessment tersebut, malahan dia betul-betul boleh menggunakan, boleh apply konten ataupun pengetahuan yang digunakan tadi ke dalam kehidupan seharian dia, meaningful task. Okay. Jadi in assessment, one is supposed to sit with the learner. The implies it is something we do with and for students, not to students. Okay, with and for, not to. Okay, itu yang dikatakan bahawa bila kita kata SC dia itu tadi, kebiasaannya dalam pentaksiran ini sebenarnya dia adalah sesuatu yang bersifat kooperatif. Okay, kita kena ingat bahawa pentaksiran ini bukan bertujuan semata-mata untuk improve apa yang pelajar lemah. Okay, sebenarnya konsep pentaksiran sebenar adalah kita bangunkan potensi diri pelajar, kekuatan pelajar. Okay, we have to remember that not everybody born to be a teacher, not everybody born to be a doctor. Okay, jadi seseorang pelajar itu dia ada kelebihan masing-masing. Daripada dia kecil sampailah di peringkat universiti, kadang-kadang mungkin pelajar itu adalah pelajar kejuruteraan, tapi kita lihat kekuatan dia sebenarnya mungkin bukan pada bidang kejuruteraan. Jadi mungkin ada room of potential yang kita boleh bangunkan dalam diri pelajar. Okay, dan bagaimana kita sebagai seorang pensyarah apabila kita melakukan pentaksiran di dalam kelas, kita benar-benar boleh bangunkan apa kekuatan pelajar berbanding dengan kita sibukkan apa kelemahan dia. Okay? Bukan bermakna saya sibukkan tu tak bagus, tetapi bermakna macam saya katalah tadi, kita sendiri sebagai pensyarah, ada pensyarah kekuatannya research, ada pensyarah kekuatannya publication, ada pensyarah kekuatannya teaching, ada pensyarah kekuatannya service learning. Jadi kalau macam kami di UTM, kami dibenarkan untuk memilih satu track yang menjadi kekuatan diri kami. Jadi kami boleh pilih sama ada track teaching, track research, track service learning, ataupun track kalau kita minat nak jadi pentadbir. Okay, mungkin track leadership. Okay, walau bagaimanapun track itu hanya sebagai sesuatu yang major, bermakna 70%. Okay, however the rest 30% kita masih kena buat research, kita masih kena buat service learning, kita masih perlu memegang jawatan-jawatan dalam task force kerana walaupun kita ada satu kekuatan tetapi yang kita tak berapa nak kuat itu dia menjadi satu sumber di mana sumber tersebut boleh mengukuhkan lagi kekuatan kita. So pelajar pun macam tu. Katakan pelajar dia tak bagus dalam matematik tapi dia bagus dalam English, dia bagus dalam bahasa Melayu, dia bagus dalam sejarah. Okey, bermakna apa yang kita nak bangunkan tadi adalah lebih kepada kekuatan dia tadi. Tetapi kelemahan dia tadi, kita boleh bangunkan mengikut kekuatan dia. Itu yang kita katakan sebenarnya assessment. Okay, what we do with and for student, not to student. Okay, jadi kalau kita biasa dengan gambar ini, okay, saya yakin mungkin ada pensyarah sebelum ini juga pernah menunjukkan gambar ini. So, sebelum ini, konsep keadilan itu kita lihat lebih kepada memberikan soalan peperiksaan, di mana soalan peperiksaan itu mungkin ada aras rendah, ada aras sederhana dan aras yang tinggi. Okey, walau bagaimanapun soalan-soalan peperiksaan itu kerana ia bukan jatuh kepada alternative assessment, jadi ia lebih sesuatu yang bersifat penilaian. Okey, berbanding dengan pentaksiran itu sendiri. Okey, jadi soalan-soalan yang berbentuk peperiksaan itu sebab dikatakan tadi traditional assessment tidak banyak sebenarnya growth ataupun development yang kita boleh lakukan kepada pelajar. Jadi kalau kita lihat gambar ini, for a fair selection everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Jadi kalau kita lihat sesuatu yang fair itu bukanlah sesuatu yang sama. Okey, sebab kita pun tahu bahawa adil itu adalah meletakkan sesuatu pada tempatnya. Bermakna di mana kekuatan pelajar, di situ adalah kekuatan yang perlu kita bangunkan dan kita perlu juga memberikan pentaksiran berdasarkan kepada kekuatan pelajar selagi tidak terkeluar daripada learning outcome kita. Okay, jadi sebab itu kalau kita perasan bermula tahun 2019, KPM juga telah mula memperkenalkan ataupun mahu pensyarah mengetengahkan bukan setakat alternative assessment tetapi juga flexible learning. Di dalam flexible learning itu juga terkandung di bawahnya seharusnya flexible assessment. Jadi kalau kita lihat nanti saya ada sentuh sedikit bagaimana kita hendak menggunakan alternative assessment dalam flexible assessment. Okey, jadi kita boleh lihat di sini. Okey, jadi ada pelajar yang mana mungkin memang kelebihan dia adalah untuk menjawab soalan peperiksaan. Dia suka jawab exam, dia boleh menulis dengan baik. Tetapi ada pelajar dia hanya boleh menterjemahkan pengetahuan dia itu dalam bentuk praktikal. Okey, jadi mungkin ada proses pentaksiran di sini yang mana kita lihat kita boleh berikan secara adil kepada pelajar. Okey, ini adalah satu proses yang mana berlaku setiap masa apabila kita kata kita nak buat assessment. Di mana kita ada testing, pengujian, okay, measurement, pengukuran, evaluation dan juga assessment. Kalau katakan saya hendak mengukur kemahiran komunikasi pelajar, testing itu adalah alat ukurnya. Jadi apa alat ukur yang saya gunakan untuk mengukur pengetahuan komunikasi pelajar tadi? Mungkin saya menggunakan debate, mungkin saya menggunakan presentation. Okey, jadi itu adalah alat ukurnya. Jadi bagaimana pula pengujian itu diukur? Alat ukur tadi katakan kita gunakan ujian berbentuk presentation. So bagaimana kita measure? Di sinilah pula datangnya alat-alat ukur dalam pentaksiran seperti rubrik, seperti rating scale, seperti checklist, okay, measurement. So measurement ini adalah apa sahaja alat ukur yang digunakan untuk mengukur ujian yang boleh memberi markah. Jadi keyword dekat situ adalah markah secara kuantitatif. Daripada markah tadi inilah pula kita akan buat penilaian terhadap markah. Okey, adakah markah tersebut lulus, tidak lulus? Adakah markah tersebut berbentuk mungkin A, B, C, D, cemerlang, baik, sederhana, lemah? Okey, itu adalah penilaian yang diberikan terhadap measurement tadi. So apa itu assessment? Jadi assessment ini adalah apa sahaja aktiviti, apa sahaja teaching and learning method ataupun teaching and learning assessment yang digunakan untuk kita merefleks, okey, mencerap markah pelajar ataupun mencerap ability pelajar yang mana akhirnya dia menjadi satu proses reflection kepada kita, kepada pelajar dan kepada sistem pendidikan itu secara keseluruhan. Sebagai contoh, kalau saya lihat bila saya buat penilaian terhadap katakan communication skills itu tadi, semua pelajar mendapat A. Katakan ataupun semua pelajar mendapat markah 90% ke atas. So saya kena reflect. Adakah dengan 90 markah ini tadi menunjukkan memang pelajar sudah dapat berkomunikasi dengan baik? Adakah ujian yang saya gunakan tadi itu valid? Adakah rubrik yang saya gunakan itu tadi valid? Adakah penilaian yang saya berikan terhadap pengukuran tadi benar-benar menggambarkan ability pelajar? Jadi dalam assessment kita sentiasa fikir why, how. Okey, betul ke? Kenapa gini? Kenapa begini? Itu assessment. Jadi kalau katakan kita dapat result yang baik untuk pelajar dalam communication skills itu tadi, kita juga kena fikirkan adakah result pelajar itu baik disebabkan memang kita guide pelajar tadi secara mendalam. Okey, adakah ujian yang kita gunakan itu tadi memang valid? Ataupun adakah rubrik yang kita berikan tadi itu terlalu mudah untuk pelajar skor? Okey, jadi itu adalah satu proses di mana kita melakukan pentaksiran bukan sahaja kepada pelajar tetapi pentaksiran terhadap keseluruhan proses teaching and learning kita. Jadi dari segi assessment kita ada dari segi function, kita ada dari segi time dan kita ada dari segi interpretation. So yang ini saya rasa dah ramai yang tahu bahawa kita ada assessment for learning, assessment of learning dan assessment as learning. Jadi untuk alternative assessment dia boleh jadi jatuh di bawah tiga-tiga sebenarnya. Tetapi yang lebih tepat, yang lebih sesuai dia akan jatuh untuk assessment for learning dan juga assessment as learning. Okey, jadi cuma baru-baru ini sempena pandemik COVID ada juga pensyarah yang menggunakan alternative assessment dalam final exam mereka. Jadi alternative assessment itu sudah pasti bila kita kata alternative assessment dalam exam, ia tidak mungkin berlaku secara multiple choice questions. Ia tidak mungkin berlaku secara soalan berbentuk essay. Okey, sebab itu masih lagi kategori traditional assessment. Okey, tetapi apa yang kita boleh nampak, pandemik COVID ini telah menyebabkan online learning berlaku dan menyebabkan ada beberapa orang pesyarah yang menggunakan alternative assessment untuk summative assessment. Okey, maksudnya untuk final exam. Sebab mungkin mereka rasa tidak yakin untuk memberikan ujian berbentuk multiple choice question ke essay kepada pelajar secara take home. Jadi mungkin mereka lebih gemar untuk tidak berlaku sebarang plagiat, untuk membuktikan bahawa pelajar yang melakukan aktiviti tersebut. Jadi terdapat pilihan di mana pesyarah menggunakan alternative assessment untuk summative assessment. Okey. Jadi tetapi kalau kita baca konsep alternative assessment itu yang sebenar-benarnya, dia lebih kepada proses pembangunan pelajar berbanding kepada untuk kita melihat ataupun menilai pelajar pada peringkat akhir. Dia lebih kepada bagaimana kita membangunkan PLO, bagaimana kita membangunkan kemahiran insaniah dalam diri pelajar menggunakan alternative assessment berbanding dengan bagaimana kita hendak menguji kemampuan akhir pelajar dalam peperiksaan. Okay? Jadi assessment for learning ini sebenarnya dia lebih kepada bagaimana assessment itu menjadikan pelajar belajar daripada assessment tadi. Itu namanya assessment for learning. Okay. Kalau katakan saya berikan rubrik, ini adalah rubrik untuk communication skills. Jadi pelajar pun tengok rubrik saya. Daripada rubrik tu dia kata, oh kalau nak berkomunikasi dengan baik, perlu ada apa? Perlu ada eye contact yang baik, okay, perlu ada spontaneous yang baik, perlu tahu bagaimana cara menjawab soalan. Jadi itu kita kata assessment for learning. Daripada assessment yang kita beri, pelajar belajar. Okay, kalau assessment as learning pula, dia lebih macam untuk self-directed learning, self-regulated learning. Bermakna ini lebih sesuai kalau katakan kita ada pelajar, penyeliaan pelajar PhD, penyeliaan pelajar master, di mana pelajar itu sendiri yang akan monitor pembelajaran dia. Pelajar itu sendiri yang akan tahu bila dia nak pergi ke perpustakaan, di mana dia perlu mencari bahan tersebut, bagaimana dia hendak berkomunikasi dengan pakar-pakar lain, bagaimana dia nak check kerja dia sebelum diberi kepada penyelia. Jadi itu kita panggil sebagai assessment as learning. Kita berikan projek kepada pelajar dan pelajar yang menyusun strategi bagaimana hendak membuat assessment ataupun pentaksiran tersebut. So itu kita panggil assessment as learning. Okay. Berbanding dengan assessment of learning yang macam saya kata tadi, dia lebih berbentuk produk. Ini dari segi masa pula. Okay. Kalau tadi dari segi function, ini lebih berbentuk masa. So assessment secara keseluruhan terdapat 4. Okay, kita ada continuous assessment. Kita ada, kita panggil sebagai at the end of assessment. Di mana kita ada placement test. Ataupun bila saya kata placement test ni, kita kena ingat daripada test berlaku measurement, berlaku evaluation, berlaku assessment. Sebab test tu kena berlaku dulu. Kalau test tak berlaku, assessment tak boleh berlaku. Okay, jadi kita kena ada placement test. Okay, so daripada placement test itu kita boleh tahu kesediaan pelajar. Okay, kita boleh tahu apakah pre-knowledge yang pelajar ada dan kemampuan ataupun ability yang sedia ada sebelum kita nak mengajar pelajar sesuatu yang mungkin lebih advance ataupun sesuatu yang baharu. Okay, kita juga ada formative assessment di mana berlaku secara berterusan, dari semasa ke semasa kita bangunkan proses belajar. Jadi formative assessment inilah sebenarnya kalau di university, kalau katakan kita ada coursework dan kalau katakan kita ada final exam. Okay. So coursework itu sebenarnya dia seharusnya bersifat formatif. Sebab final exam dia seharusnya bersifat summative. Apa itu formatif? Formatif itu memberi maksud kita sentiasa memberikan ruang dan peluang kepada pelajar untuk improve. Contohnya, kalau saya ada assignment berikan kepada pelajar, okay, saya berikan assignment tersebut pada minggu pertama, okay, jika saya hanya mengambil assignment tersebut atau memeriksa assignment tersebut pada minggu ke-14, okay, bermakna pada waktu itu sebenarnya assignment saya bukan formative assessment. Dia dah jatuh kepada summative assessment. Sebab apa? Sebab pada minggu ke-14 tu kita tanda, kita beri markah dan markah itu terus kita ambil dan masukkan dalam grade CGPA mereka. Jadi Formative assessment tidak boleh begitu. Formative assessment kita kena ada pemantauan secara berkala. Okey, pemantauan secara berkala. Di mana contohnya saya ada satu assessment, saya ada assignment tadi. Saya akan pastikan pelajar menghantar draft pada minggu ketiga, minggu ke-6, 9, 12 dan barulah saya gunakan markah terakhir itu untuk dimasukkan ke dalam grade. Jadi just imagine kalau pelajar hantar draft kita selama sebanyak beberapa kali, dan kalau praktis saya adalah setiap kesalahan pelajar saya akan bawa ke dalam kelas. Bermakna kadang-kadang saya upload dekat e-learning, contohnya okey jangan buat begini, ini adalah citation yang perlukan penambahbaikan. Okey, jadi bila seorang pelajar melakukan kesalahan, jadi saya akan post dalam grup dan semua pelajar lain akan belajar. Bermakna mereka belajar berdasarkan contoh ataupun kesalahan yang dilakukan oleh pelajar lain. Jadi secara logik, kalau assignment tu pelajar tak dapat markah yang baik, so dia ada dua keadaan. Keadaan pertama adalah disebabkan oleh pelajar yang tidak committed, bermakna kita minta hantar draft pun pelajar tak hantar, jadi kita tak boleh nak lakukan penambahbaikan terhadap draft tugasan mereka. Yang kedua, mungkin disebabkan kita yang tidak memberikan peluang untuk pelajar menambah baik tugasan mereka. Okay? Maksudnya adalah kita minta mereka buat pada minggu pertama, kita bagi tugasan pada minggu pertama dan minggu 14 baru kita ambil assignment dan baru kita menanda. So itu sebenarnya tidak memenuhi konsep formative assessment. Okey, seterusnya kita ada diagnostic assessment. So diagnostic assessment ini pula dia adalah sesuatu yang berlaku apabila kita tahu kelemahan pelajar pada peringkat formative tadi. Okey. Bila kita buat formative assessment, kita akan nampak kesalahan lazim yang dilakukan oleh pelajar. So bila kita nampak kesalahan lazim, kita pun akan buat diagnostik terhadap kesalahan lazim itu tadi. Contohnya kita berikan Latif to be, kita berikan tutorial, kita buat satu kelas khas untuk topik yang hendak kita diagnose tadi. Tapi diagnostik ni hanya boleh kita tahu apabila kita dah buat formative assessment tadi. So daripada formative assessment baru kita nampak pattern, pattern kesalahan atau kelemahan yang perlu kita diagnose dalam pembelajaran pelajar. So merujuk kepada formative assessment itu tadi, kalau kata quiz, quiz. Dalam kita punya course information ataupun saya tak pastilah di UUM dipanggil sebagai apa, course information kita biasanya kalau MQA dia minta kita bahagikan mana formative assessment kita dan mana summative assessment kita. Okay. So ada pensyarah yang meletakkan quiz sebagai formative assessment mereka. Jadi kita kena ingat, bila kita meletakkan quiz dalam formative assessment kita, bermakna kita memberikan peluang kepada pelajar untuk improve sekiranya quiz tersebut mereka tidak perform. Okay. Tapi kalau kita hanya buat quiz sekali dan satu markah itulah yang kita masukkan nanti juga dalam kita punya grade pencapaian pelajar nanti, bermakna quiz tersebut juga tidak memenuhi konsep formative. Okey, bermakna kalau katakan kita buat quiz sekali, dan kebanyakan pelajar itu tidak perform dalam quiz tersebut, bermakna kita perlu buat quiz lagi. Jadi ada soalan yang biasa pensyarah tanya pada saya, takkan kita nak tunggu sampai satu kelas tu dapat 100% baru kita boleh kata kuis tersebut tak perlu dilakukan semula. Okey. Apa yang saya boleh nyatakan dalam pembelajaran kita, kita ada KPI. Dalam pengajaran kita ada KPI. In fact semasa audit MQA juga dia akan tanya kita, adakah PLO kita itu mencapai KPI ataupun tidak. Kalau macam saya di School of Education, KPI kami adalah 0.65. 65%. Apa makna 65%? Kalau saya boleh kaitkan dengan kuis yang tadi, itu bermakna saya nak pelajar saya 65% daripada pelajar mendapat sekurang-kurangnya 65 markah. Kalau katakan kuis saya itu tadi 10 markah, saya nak sekurang-kurangnya 65% of them in the class got 6.5 out of 10. Okay, jadi pada waktu itu mungkin saya dah boleh stop untuk buat next quiz ataupun quiz kedua, quiz ketiga. Okay, saya minta maaf, saya tak boleh nak nampak tau. Saya ada dengar macam bunyi chat, oh tak ada chat. Okay, kalau ada soalan nanti saya akan check dari semasa ke semasa sebab saya tak boleh nak tengok chat dalam WhatsApp saya. Okay, so yang summative test tadi tu adalah sesuatu yang at the end of the whole learning and teaching process. Okay, yang paling glamour sekali bila kata summative ni memanglah final exam. Okay, tetapi kita ada juga viva voce, kita ada midterm exam and one attempt quiz. Nampak one attempt quiz. So kalau kita ada one attempt quiz, kita tak boleh letakkan dalam formative assessment. Kita kena letakkan dalam summative assessment. Macam tu juga dengan viva voce. Okay, kalau kita perasan, proses pelajar buat research tu itu adalah formative. Okay, which is pelajar akan jumpa dengan pensyarah, pensyarah akan sentiasa berikan penambahbaikan, tunjuk ajar dari semasa ke semasa. Okay, which is ada juga pelajar yang from zero to hero. Daripada tak tahu apa-apa buat penyelidikan, finally dia boleh buat analisis dengan baik, dia boleh buat citation dengan baik, dia boleh buat synthesis of information dengan baik. Okay, tetapi tiba-tiba waktu viva, dia tak boleh bentang dengan baik. Bila bagi soalan, gugup untuk jawab. Bila kita, viva ini sesuatu yang bersifat rezeki jugalah, bergantung kepada penilai bagaimana. Tetapi apa yang saya nak tekankan, kalau katakan keseluruhan proses formatif itu tadi baik, okay, maksudnya pelajar improve dari semasa ke semasa, tetapi tiba-tiba waktu viva dia tak boleh jawab, dia fail, bermakna dia akan fail walaupun dia belajar sesuatu semasa formative exercise tadi, semasa formative assessment tadi. Tapi disebabkan viva dia fail, kita kata dia gagal dalam PhD dia atau gagal dalam sarjana dia. Sedangkan bila dia gagal bukan bermakna dia tidak belajar apa-apa. Sebab viva voce ni dia lebih bersifat summative, okay? Dan walaupun pelajar tu improve dari semasa ke semasa tetapi markah tersebut tak dibawa semasa viva voce. So itu adalah antara contoh-contoh summative assessment yang berlaku dalam universiti. Okay. So ini pula adalah bagaimana kita menginterpretasikan assessment. Assessment itu boleh diinterpretasikan kepada dua keadaan. Keadaan pertama adalah apabila kita menggunakan assessment itu untuk membanding beza pencapaian pelajar. Dan ini sebenarnya lebih kepada summative assessment. Okay, kalau saya akan cakap dia lebih sesuai sebenarnya untuk penilaian, bukan pentaksiran. Tapi disebabkan kita ada summative assessment dan summative assessment itu kadang-kadang dia menjadi penilaian. Okay, di mana tujuan assessment yang sebenar-benarnya bukan untuk membandingkan pencapaian pelajar. Tapi apabila dia jatuh dalam summative assessment dan pada waktu itu kita memang nak membuat perbandingan, maka pada waktu itu kita telah menggunakan perbandingan secara norm reference test, ujian rujukan norma. Apa itu ujian rujukan norma? Okey, ujian rujukan norma ini sangat banyak berlaku dalam peperiksaan standard. Contohnya macam SPM, UPSR, okey. PT3 tidak. PT3 adalah pentaksiran. Okey, jadi apa yang berlaku? Okey, kalau katakan pada kohort tersebut, katakan kohort SPM, subjek matematik tambahan, okey, kita dah siap-siap tetapkan. Kita hendak 0.1% of the students got A plus, okay. 2.2% got maybe A minus. 30.6% got B. 34.1C adalah lulus dan sebagainya. Okay. Inilah yang berlaku kalau katakan pada waktu peperiksaan tersebut, katakanlah satu Malaysia, pelajar yang paling tinggi sekali pun mendapat markah untuk matematik tambahan itu 74 katakan. Jadi pelajar yang mendapat markah 74 pada waktu itu dia akan dapat A plus. Okay, walaupun sebenarnya A itu pada satu konsep dia perlu mendapat mungkin 80 atau 90. Okay, jadi bila kita normalizekan, bermakna pelajar yang mendapat markah 74% tadi adalah paling tinggi, jadi pada waktu itu graf turun. Jadi mungkin pelajar yang dapat B ni mungkin adalah pelajar yang mendapat markah 56%. Mungkin. So ini adalah norm reference test yang mana saya yakin kita tidak gunakan di universiti. Di universiti, kita gunakan criterion reference test. Di mana kalau satu kelas kita tu memang perform, semua layak dapat A. Bermakna kita membandingkan pencapaian pelajar, kita membandingkan ability pelajar dengan satu standard kriteria yang telah kita tetapkan. Okey, sebagai contoh kalau kita buat assignment, kita minta pelajar buat assignment, ada rubrik. Jadi as long as the students comply with the rubrics and they do the assignment excellently, so they are reserved, okay, to get A. Okay, dia bermakna dia apa? Walaupun satu kelas tu memang markah dia A, jadi memang satu kelas tu deserve untuk dapat A. Macam tu. Okay. Okay, jadi sekarang ni bagaimana kita nak kaitkan pula assessment dalam outcome based education. Okay, kalau kita nampak di sini, ini adalah model outcome based education. Bermakna kita akan plan pembelajaran kita bermula dari outcome, kemudian kita determine the assessment, kemudian kita tengok learning activity yang bersesuaian untuk mengukur assessment dan mengukur outcome tadi. Okay. Dan akhir sekali adalah kita tengok sama ada kurikulum yang kita letakkan dalam pembelajaran kita itu masih relevan ataupun tidak untuk mencapai outcome tersebut. So ini adalah constructive alignment dan juga outcome based education. Di mana identify outcome ini perlu align dengan program learning outcome, program outcome. CLO adalah course learning outcome ataupun ada yang sebut course outcome sahaja, dan juga unit learning outcome. Unit learning outcome ni bermakna apa yang kita nak pelajar capai pada setiap pertemuan, pada setiap minggu contohnya. Okay. Kemudian determine assessment in terms of the strategies of assessment, method of assessment and the tool of assessment. So kalau methods of assessment contohnya adalah presentation, itu method. So apa tools yang digunakan? Rubric. Okay. Katakan method of assessment adalah service learning. Okay. Apa tools yang digunakan? Katakan rating scale. Katakan method yang digunakan adalah peer review. Okay, apa tools yang digunakan? Mungkin feedback form. Macam tu. Okay. Dan kita perlukan juga learning activities yang bersifat konstruktif. Kenapa konstruktif? Kerana di Malaysia, kementerian menggunakan OBE dan constructive alignment. Bila kita kata constructive alignment, bermakna pembelajaran kita perlu bersifat konstruktif. Bila kata pembelajaran kita perlu bersifat konstruktif, secara logiknya, pelajar perlu membina pengetahuan sendiri. Sebab itu adalah teori konstruktivism. Jadi nak katakan di sini adalah, kalau katakan kita buat kita punya course information, okay, teaching plan kita tu tadi, kalau katakan kita berasaskan kepada Bloom taxonomy, sepatutnya saya boleh kata Bloom taxonomy yang paling rendah pun adalah C3, iaitu apply. Okay, just imagine, takkanlah sepanjang 14 minggu kita cuma nak belajar boleh C1 define or C2 to maybe to explain. Okay, if only to explain and to define, it's better for us to put under unit learning outcome, not course learning outcome. Why? Because our teaching and learning session is aligned with constructive alignment. What is constructive alignment? Means that all the teaching and learning, all the knowledge must be constructed by the students by their own from the activities. Jadi kalau kita lihat dekat sini, learning activity mesti konstruktif. Bermakna kalau kita nak pelajar are able to apply, okay, bermakna learning activities tu pelajar kena buat sesuatu. Kalau learning objective adalah students are able to analyze, so aktivitinya adalah pelajar kena membanding beza sesuatu. Kena perform. Itu yang nanti kita akan masuk tentang alternative assessment. Dan finally barulah kita tengok dahulu dia adalah adakah kurikulum yang kita tetapkan boleh mencapai outcome ataupun tidak. So kalau kita lihat assessment dalam OBE ini dia menggunakan backwash theory ataupun backwash model. Okay, di mana dia ke belakang. Kalau dulu traditional curriculum kita meletakkan konten tu dulu. Daripada konten tu kita susun aktiviti, daripada konten tu kita susun ujian, assessment, dan daripada konten tu baru kita nampak apa yang pelajar kena buat. Jadi itu dulu. Jadi apa kelemahan yang dulu tu? Sedikitlah kelemahannya adalah kita bimbang konten tu disebabkan kita tengok konten dulu, kita tak sedar bahawa konten tu relevance ataupun tidak. Sebab outcome tadi ikut konten. Tapi yang ini Konten tadi ikut outcome. Jadi kalau katakan outcome tu diperlukan oleh industri, kita tengok alamak dalam kurikulum kita tak ada menyentuh outcome yang diperlukan industri, so kita akan buat semakan kurikulum. Okey. Okey, jadi secara umum juga pentaksiran itu boleh dibahagikan kepada dua. Okey, iaitu alternative assessment dan juga conventional assessment ataupun traditional assessment. Okey, sebenarnya saya lebih suka menggunakan perkataan traditional assessment, tapi di UTM menggunakan conventional assessment. Alright, di bawah alternative assessment, kita ada alternatif yang bersifat performance based dan kita ada sesuatu yang bersifat authentic assessment. So kita nampak alternatif ni umbrella yang besar. Okey, di mana di bawah alternatif tu dia boleh jadi performance based dan dia boleh jadi authentic assessment. Apa yang saya nak nyatakan di sini, semua assessment yang bersifat authentic dia adalah performance based. Tetapi tidak semua yang performance based itu dia bersifat authentic. Okey, kerana authentic ini kebiasaannya dia memerlukan pelajar untuk melakukan sesuatu dalam satu konteks yang sebenar. Okey, ibaratnya kalau saya sebagai seorang guru, kalau saya hanya menjalankan micro teaching di dalam kelas, di mana pelajar mengajar rakan-rakan lain di dalam kelas, saya memberi teguran di dalam kelas, rakan-rakan lain berlakon menjadi pelajar, itu kita panggil sebagai performance based. Tetapi apabila pelajar menjalani latihan mengajar di sekolah, itu kita panggil sebagai authentic assessment. So antara authentic assessment ni adalah internship. Sebab apa? Sebab internship pelajar memang kena buat di real setting, di workplace mereka. Okay, tetapi kalau performance based, not necessarily mereka perlu buat di tempat yang sebenar. Mungkin ada simulation dan sebagainya. Okay. Okay. Saya tengok chat. Takut-takut ada soalan. Okay, so saya teruskan. Okay. Jadi saya nak juga tunjukkan sedikit ya, apabila berlaku pandemik COVID macam kami di UTM, kami masih menjalankan teaching and learning secara online pada semester hadapan. Jadi bila berlaku pentaksiran secara online, okey, jadi ramai yang mula confused. Adakah pentaksiran secara online ini tak boleh berlaku secara alternatif? Okey. Ada juga salah faham yang saya jumpa sepanjang saya mengendalikan bengkel berkaitan dengan online assessment ini. Dia ingatkan online assessment itu adalah alternative assessment. Sebab diingatkan kalau katakan face to face tu yang traditional, yang online tu adalah alternatif. Okey, itu adalah konsep yang tidak tepat ya. Jadi online assessment itu juga dia boleh terjadi sama ada secara traditional assessment atau alternatif. Jadi assessment itu kalau kita lihat di sini, kita ada formative assessment, kita ada summative assessment. Di mana kedua-duanya ini boleh terjadi sama ada secara traditional. Bila kata traditional, saya letakkan macam peperiksaan, ujian, quiz, dan dia juga boleh terjadi secara alternatif. Apa itu alternatif? Yang memerlukan performance based. Okey? Dan kedua-duanya ini boleh terjadi sama ada secara offline bersemuka ataupun secara online. Dan online itu juga dia boleh terjadi sama ada secara sinkronos ataupun asinkronos. Sama ada real time ataupun mungkin asinkronos lah, bermakna kita bagi ujian, pelajar buat dahulu, kemudian mereka submit secara online. Okey. Jadi ini mungkin untuk mengelakkan kekeliruan bahawa online assessment not necessarily alternative, tetapi alternative assessment juga boleh dilakukan secara online dan juga face to face. Okey. Okey, jadi sebentar ya, saya lihat jika ada soalan. Okey. Alright. So, seterusnya adalah alternative assessment. So, saya masuk sekarang alternative assessment. So, alternative assessment is the beyond the traditional psychometrically driven testing. Okay? Designed to assess learning tasks that simulate critical thinking and require students to produce or demonstrate knowledge rather simply recall information provided to them by others. Okay, apa yang saya boleh katakan adalah bila kata alternative assessment, bermakna assessment yang dijalankan itu bukan melibatkan pelajar hanya menghafal atau recall sahaja. Bermakna pelajar kena do by their own. Okay, sebab itu alternative assessment adalah untuk menentukan apa yang student boleh buat dan tak boleh buat. Bukannya untuk menyatakan apa yang mereka tahu dan mereka tidak tahu. So kalau to measure what they know or do not know, then you can go for traditional assessment. But if you want to measure something that students can do, can perform or cannot perform, then it's better for us to choose alternative assessment. Okay. Jadi bila nak gunakan alternative assessment ini, so biasa, jadi alternative assessment ini sepatutnya dia digunakan to substitute pencil and paper test. Bermakna ada ujian-ujian, ada performance, ada ability yang tidak sesuai untuk diukur menggunakan pencil and paper test, dan kebiasaannya yang lebih sesuai untuk digunakan adalah menggunakan alternative assessment. So of course, alternative assessment is to measure higher level skills or other skills, okay, that cannot be measured by pencil and paper test. Okay, macam saya kata tadi, sepatutnya bila kita gunakan alternative assessment, kita punya learning outcome perlu jatuh sekurang-kurangnya C3, iaitu di apply. Kalau katakan itu kognitif, kalau katakan dia adalah affective domain, okay, kalau di Malaysia ni kita gunakan affective domain by Krathwohl. So saya boleh nyatakan bahawa mungkin yang paling sesuai adalah valuing. Bukannya receiving, bukannya responding. Valuing. Apa itu valuing? Bermakna pelajar dapat nilai tersebut. Okay? Dan kalau katakan kita punya verb dalam course information kita pula untuk mengukur sesuatu yang bersifat psikomotor, okay? Saya rasa untuk alternative assessment dia sekurang-kurangnya perlu berada pada level mechanism, not guided response. Sebab kalau guided response, dia masih memerlukan bantuan tutor, bantuan pensyarah, bantuan bantuan technician untuk membuat sesuatu. Tapi kalau mekanism, dia boleh perform by their own walaupun tidak begitu cantik ataupun tidak begitu skillful. Okay, maksudnya walaupun tak capai tahap seterusnya, iaitu tahap seterusnya adalah bermakna dia complex over response, maksudnya yang lebih daripada mekanism lah, dah skillful. Jadi itu maksud saya. Maksud saya adalah higher level ni sama ada kognitif ke, affective ke, psikomotor ke, sepatutnya pensyarah akan pilih verb yang mana pelajar boleh perform benda tu sendiri. Okay, pelajar mendapat nilai itu sendiri, pelajar boleh melakukan aktiviti psikomotor itu sendiri, dan pelajar boleh construct knowledge itu sendiri. Okay. So itu yang di bawah tu adalah contoh-contoh ujian yang memang tidak boleh tidak, memang kena menggunakan performance based ataupun alternative assessment, seperti berlakon, balancing, counting, drawing, experimenting, interviewing, musical skill, physical education skills, speaking skills and writing skills. So skills-skills di bawah yang saya tunjukkan itu, dia tidak mungkin boleh diukur dengan baik menggunakan pencil and paper test. Okay? Sebab itu tak ada ujian hafazan kita gunakan pencil and paper test. Ujian hafazan biasanya kita akan minta oral test. Okay? Jadi apabila kita kata alternative assessment itu mempunyai 5 ciri asas. Asas pertama, student kena perform. Bila kita kata perform, student kena buat. Okay, bukan setakat student hafal, tulis, ingat, bukan sahaja begitu. Okay, dan performance itu dia akan melibatkan higher level of thinking. So macam saya kata, higher level of thinking seelok-eloknya kognitif C3, okay, iaitu applying. Kalau valuing, kalau affective valuing, dan kalau psikomotor adalah pada aras mechanism. Okay, dan dia mesti melibatkan meaningful instructional task. Okay, bermakna pelajar memang belajar sesuatu daripada task yang diberikan oleh pensyarah. Kenapa kena meaningful? Kerana dia melibatkan real world application. Contoh, kalau katakan yang fakulti dari fakulti engineering ni memang banyaklah, sebab memang mereka deal dengan banyak perkara-perkara yang memerlukan sesuatu yang berbentuk tangible. Tapi kalau dalam education, contohnya adalah dalam kelas kita ajar pelajar macam mana cara nak buat soalan peperiksaan. Dalam kelas kita ajar pelajar bagaimana cara untuk menilai soalan peperiksaan, menilai kualiti item peperiksaan. Jadi apa yang saya buat, saya akan minta pelajar ke sekolah. Ambil soalan peperiksaan di sekolah. Okey, analisis soalan peperiksaan tersebut, sama ada dia mempunyai item analisis dari segi index discrimination and also index difficulty yang baik ataupun tidak. Jadi mereka tahu, oh bila di sekolah nanti ini yang akan saya gunakan di sekolah. Kerana kajian yang saya buat bersama pelajar juga menunjukkan di sekolah kebanyakannya aktiviti ujian yang dibuat mereka hanya ada analisis markah saja. Mereka tak ada analisis item. Jadi mungkin untuk sekolah-sekolah yang dah buat is very good. Tetapi bermakna pelajar-pelajar yang keluar hasil daripada our product university, dia boleh membawa sesuatu yang baharu untuk diperkenalkan di sekolah. So it relates to real world application. Okey, bukannya kita setakat bagi latihan, okey ini cara nak buat item analysis, no. Kita minta dia pergi ke sekolah ambil ujian sebenar. Sebab bila buat ujian sebenar ini dia lain dengan ujian yang kita buat dalam kelas. Ujian yang kita buat dalam kelas tu mungkin kita dah set nak cantik ataupun result dia tu baik kan. Tapi kalau yang sebenar di sekolah, bermakna kita boleh nampak beberapa sudut penambahbaikan dan juga pelajar boleh beri komen. Kita membantu mereka berfikir terhadap kualiti item peperiksaan yang dibina di sekolah. Dan akhir sekali, karakteristik of alternative assessment yang akan membuatkan pensyarah sentiasa relevance dari semasa ke semasa, tiada robot yang boleh menggantikan pensyarah, iaitu human touch, human judgment in scoring. Bermakna tidak boleh sesuatu alternative assessment itu terjadi dengan automated result. Okay? Kalau automated result sekalipun adalah selepas pensyarah masukkan markah, selepas pensyarah menilai. Okay? Bermakna alternative assessment kita memang akan terdedah dengan human judgment. Bila saya kata terdedah dengan human judgment, dia boleh jadi baik dan dia ada juga disadvantage. Disadvantage dia adalah apabila penilaian manusia itu sendiri akan ada bias. Dan di sini kita perlu tackle secara psikometrik bagaimana hendak mengurangkan bias. Terutama kalau katakan satu kelas itu dinilai oleh pensyarah yang sangat straight dan pensyarah yang sangat lenient. Pensyarah yang sangat senior, pensyarah yang sangat junior. Jadi mungkin ada perbezaan dari segi the way of how they mark students' task. Jadi apa saya nyatakan di sini adalah kalau katakan assessment kita itu tidak memerlukan human judgment, cuba kita tengok adakah dia alternative assessment ataupun tidak. Sebagai contoh, kalau setakat kita beri multiple choice question kepada pelajar, jawapan pelajar kita masukkan dalam mesin, so mesin OMR tu akan mesin OMR itu jadi akan berikan markah. So itu sudah pasti adalah
tapi ada smart ya.
smart. Saya rasa ada boleh mute kan kita?
Mungkin macam sebab I know sebab memang tak kisah pun. And
boleh minta.
Okay, dah mute doktor.
Okay, terima kasih dah mute Alright. Okay, jadi ini yang saya nyatakan characteristic of alternative assessment. Seterusnya, kalau kita lihat, kenapa pula anal kat situ tu? Okay. Analisis. Jadi, banyak sangat jurnal yang membincangkan tentang alternative assessment. Jadi, kalau kita lihat di sini, yang dipersetujui oleh kebanyakan scholars adalah ia mesti bersifat non-traditional. Tetapi ada yang menyatakan not necessarily authentic kerana boleh bersifat performance based. Ada yang menyatakan alternative assessment bukan hanya setakat untuk students empowerment, malah untuk teachers empowerment, malah untuk curriculum empowerment. Dan ada yang menyatakan ia tidak semestinya bersifat formative. Ia boleh terjadi sama ada bersifat summative juga. Dan ada yang menyatakan ia not necessary evidence learning. Mungkin ia hanya sebagai satu cara untuk buat sahaja tapi bukan evidence. Tetapi apa yang saya boleh nyatakan, kelima-lima construct ini atau kelima-lima tema ini sebenarnya adalah sesuatu yang kita boleh fikirkan apabila kita membuat alternative assessment. Of course, dia mesti non-traditional. Dan adakah dia bersifat autentik atau setakat performance based biasa? Adakah ia hanya melibatkan students empowerment ataupun ada empowerment lain yang boleh dibangunkan apabila kita buat alternative assessment tersebut? Adakah assessment yang kita gunakan itu bersifat formative, ataupun juga kita gunakan untuk summative? Dan dapat tak kita jadikan alternative assessment kita itu sebagai satu evidence of learning? Okay. Seterusnya adalah alternative assessment ladder. Tangga-tangga dalam alternative assessment. Okay. Ladder pertama akan menunjukkan Ya, ya.
Okay, kita ada few lecturers, international lecturers, so boleh Doktor
Oh,
to English?
okay, can. Ingatkan Fadlina speak in Malay, tak ada lecturer bahasa, tak ada lecturer English.
Awal dia ada bawa masuk.
Okay, can. Okay. So this
Okay,
is
boleh tu.
sama. This is alternative assessment ladder. Okay, when we say the ladder of alternative assessment, it reflects on the level of the lecturers implementing the alternative assessment. So the first one is the level 1, which is when the lecturers is only using the alternative assessment for summative measure. Okay, so as I said before, okay, we have formative measure and we have summative measure. So for those who are only use the alternative assessment in their summative measure, so they are in level 1. Okay, level 1. Okay, in Malaysian Qualification Agency's document, it is compulsory for us to have both formative assessment and summative assessment. But some misunderstanding happened is they thought summative assessment must be as a final exam. Okay, actually it is not. Okay, summative assessment can be in any kind of test, including if you want to do the alternative assessment. So what's the difference between the alternative assessment in formative assessment and alternative assessment in summative assessment? The big difference is in formative assessment, you give the students room of improvement. You give them few attempts to improve their work. But in summative assessment, it's only one attempt. You give the task for them, they do, and you will collect and give marks. So that's the difference. So it can be both summative and formative, but the way how you conduct the test, okay, will determine either it is the formative or summative assessment. Okay, so for the second ladder, level 2, means that the lecturer is periodically monitoring of formative assessment. And I believe that actually many of lecturers are here, level 2. Means that in our teaching and learning process, we have a few of tasks, few of assessment that includes alternative assessment. For example, maybe you have presentation, maybe you have debate, maybe you have a project, maybe you have mini scale research. Okay, so if you have a few alternative assessment that you use periodically in your formative assessment, so you are in ladder 2. Okay, and the highest ladder when you are using the flexibility in assessment. Okay, so when we say the flexibility, at the end of my talk, I will touch a little bit about flexible assessment. So flexibility here means that you give the different assessment to the students, although you are measuring the same program outcomes. Okay, for example, okay, this is so many happens, I think, in Western University. For example, you want to measure the program outcomes of entrepreneurship, for example. So you say to them, you can do anything, any kind of task, any kind of assessment, as long as comply with the rubric. So what is the rubric one? Okay, the rubric want to see how you generate the idea. The rubric want to see how you convince other. The rubric want to see how you solve the problem innovatively. So from the rubric, the students have their own right to choose any kind of assessment. Maybe some of them, they want to do the interview. Maybe some of them, they want to do the project. Maybe some of them, they want to do the mini scale research. Maybe some of them, they want to do some kind of role play. So it's up to them as long as they comply the rubric. Why they have to comply the rubric? Because although they are performing the different kind of assessment, but we as lecturer are measuring the same program outcomes. Okay, so this is actually the explanation, okay, of the ladder of assessment just now. Okay, we also have the one who are putting up the ladder, not yet in the level 1, means they are here. Who are they? They are the one that still not implementing the alternative assessment, but they have an interest, they plan to do, but not yet implement the alternative assessment in the class. So if you read the first steps, moving up the level 2 and the nearing the top of the level 3, okay, it is what, as I explained before, either you are using in summative assessment, or you are using the alternative assessment periodically in formative assessment, or you use the alternative assessment as a flexible assessment. Okay? Okay, so these are the examples of alternative assessment. Okay, we have more than this actually, but this is actually research done by my team. Okay, we do the research on what are the most popular alternative assessment practiced by the lecturers in UTM. So there are service learning, studio work, okay, 2 studio work, sorry, case study, portfolio, writing journal proposal, reflection, article review, writing speech or summary, studio, so many studio work. Why? Research project and also debate. So actually, this is not, this is some, okay, some of the alternative assessment, but of course you will have more. For example, you have simulation, okay, you will have the experiments, okay. So this is some of the assessment that fall under alternative assessment. Okay, so now how we want to implement the alternative assessment based on the cycle of alternative assessment. Okay, first, of course, this cycle of assessment is created, is designed based on the outcome-based education. Okay, because in Malaysia, we are using outcome-based education. So in KPM and MQA, they are asking us to implement, to comply with outcome-based education and constructive alignment. So first of all, we have to identify the outcomes, then choose the alternative assessment. The third one, choose the alternative assessment tools, which is rubric or and etc. Not necessarily rubric, it can be the assessment tools. Okay, and then monitor and the feedback, and we do the CQI. Okay, and then after the CQI, we can improve the outcome or the course information. Okay, so I go one by one. The first one is identify outcome. So we will measure the behavior expected from the outcomes, either in cognitive, affective, or psychomotor. So these are based on philosophy of outcome-based education and perspective alignment. Okay, this for those who are just participate of this workshop. So this is the model of outcome-based education, which is we are now identifying the outcomes. Okay, this is example of course information. Okay, course learning outcomes that are using the alternative assessment. Okay. For example, students should be able to apply. Okay, see here, the verb are C3 in cognitive, apply. And conduct. Okay, see, people ask me, why you have 2 verbs in one course learning outcome? Because from Malaysian Qualification Agency said that, KPM also said that, you cannot have 2 verbs in one course learning outcomes. So why I have 2? Because apply is to measure cognitive and conduct is to measure psychomotor. So if in one CLO, you are going to measure more than one learning domain, for example, cognitive and psychomotor in this case, so you can have 2 verbs. Because this apply is refer to cognitive Bloom taxonomy and this conduct is actually refer to the psychomotor Simpson taxonomy. Okay, so students should be able to apply and conduct in a group the research using a valid instrument. So the good course learning outcome, actually you have the verb, okay, you have the audience, you have the condition. What is the condition? Conduct in group. And you have the degree. What is the degree? Valid instrument. This is what we call as ABCD formula in developing the course learning outcome. You have audience, you have behavior, the verb, apply and conduct. You have the condition, means that the task should be able to do in a group. And the final one, the degree, is using the valid instrument. The next one, students should be able to analyze the information ethically, respect group members, and able to take action that involve others through service learning activities. You see? Analyze the information is cognitive. Respect group members is affective. Take action is psychomotor. You see, this CLO has three things to measure: cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So, what is the expectation from the CLO? Should have high mark. Because so many things you want to observe here. Of course, the assessment will be more than one. Okay, because of course the rubric will be more than one. The rubric for cognitive cannot be same as the rubric for affective and psychomotor. So, the assumption here, if let's say the auditor see your CLO, of course, the first impression, I guess the mark for this CLO will be high. It's not 10%, it's not 20%. It might be more than 40%. Okay? Okay. So the second one, you have the second one of the cycle of alternative assessment is choose an alternative assessment. So choose the assessment that can measure the behavior just now. Apply, analyze, conduct, respect, okay, take actions, okay. Relate with the learning activities that can use the alternative assessment. And finally, we want the constructive learning outcome. This is we call as constructive learning outcome. Why constructive? Because the verb all needs students to perform, and students can develop the knowledge by their own. Okay, so constructive learning outcome will use an alternative assessment. So of course cannot be used the quiz, test, final exam. Okay, from the transformative learning. See, constructive learning outcome, alternative assessment, and transformative learning. Means transformative learning that student can transform themselves from not know to someone that can perform something. Okay, so this is some constructive alignment here just now. Students should be able to apply and conduct in a group the research using a valid instrument. So what are the alternative assessment strategies? Okay, you can use the research proposal as an assessment, review of literature, or interview script. So what are the learning activities? Using the mini-scale research, case study, interview, and group discussion. Students should be able to analyze the information ethically, respect group members, and able to take actions that involve other through service learning activities. So of course lah, the learning activity should be service learning. But the alternative of assessment strategies, it can be either using portfolio, observation, or peer assessment. Then, when you have determined the alternative assessment strategies or method, you have to choose the assessment tools. Okay, assessment tools that measure the assessment strategies mentioned before. So one thing we have to remember that there is no one tool that can suit for all size. No. Okay, so if you want to measure the cognitive, you might need another kind of assessment tool. If you want to measure students' communication, you cannot use the same rubric, okay, to measure students' communication in the class with the students' communication in the fieldwork. It should be different. Although both are measuring the communications, but it should be different. Okay. Okay, you can adopt or self-develop of the rubric or rating scales of the checklist. I would say that actually the best rubric, the best assessment tools is developed by you. Why? Because only you know the nature of the activities, the nature of the assessment, the nature of the program. Okay, as I said previously, when you do the communication skills in the class, okay, your expectation with the communication skills outside the class, okay, with the community should be different. So you have to look at the rubric. Does this rubric is really appropriate to measure the students' communication skills when they go to community? Or actually this rubric is only appropriate to measure students' presentation in the class. Okay, so actually there is a way how to develop the rubric. You can do the meta content analysis, or you can use the free application Rubista. But Rubista is only the application that help you to create the rubric. However, you are the one, we as a lecturer, we are the one who should consider, Okay, the content validity, the appropriateness of the words, the suitability of the rating scale, the suitability of the construct to measure the performance. Okay. Okay, so I'm giving some example here using the same learning outcome just now. So let's say just now we want students to do some mini scale research, and the assessment method is research proposal. So we can check the research proposal using the rubric. We can check the review of literature by using the checklist or answer scheme. Okay, so this is assessment tools. Okay, when we say the assessment tools, the tools that you will give the mark for that assessment method. Okay, so for example, rubric, anecdotal notes, and writing skills. Okay. Number 4, the cycle of number 4, monitor the student progress. So when we say assessment, again, the meaning is you sit together with them, the meaning that you give them the room of improvement, the meaning that it's not one attempt of the task. So it is advisable to do more than 3 times. What more than 3 times? The check, the draft. Okay, means that advisable for us to monitor more than 3 times students' draft, students' work, student progress, and record the marks. So then you can track the progress, track how the student's ability develops. Okay, and then this is the assessment for learning, not to compare between the students, not to compare between the assignment. No, it's to compare between the assignment with the criteria. It's the matter of comparing the student's ability with the criteria. Okay, remember criterion reference test just now. So the good alternative assessment is the formative assessment that can scaffold to summative assessment. Scaffold means that when they do the task in formative assessment using the alternative assessment, this assessment is linked to the summative assessment. So by doing the alternative assessment, by doing the project in the formative assessment, they can perform in their summative assessment. So monitor student progress also is an evidence. Okay, who improve, who submit the draft, who has interest in our class, who need more motivation, who need help. Okay. All right. And make sure when we monitor the student progress, write the student's name, write the date, and write some narrative note, okay, additional with the score in our rubric or in our checklist. So some narrative notes is sometimes is very important because when the students come to see us, we also sometimes do not remember quickly or easily when we look at the numbers in our rubric. But when we jot down something, means that it's easy for us to give some reflection, to give some feedback to the students when they ask, okay, for the draft of their progress. Okay. So remember, students can escape bad teaching, but they cannot escape the bad assessment. Why? Okay. From my observation, and this observation is actually we do some research, students say that the kind of how teachers or lecturers teach now is very good. The teaching method are various. Some of them go to the field work, some of them do the problem-based learning, some of them do the case study, okay? But the problem is when it comes to assessment, sometimes the assessment do not reflect what they learn in the class. So this is what the board say. Student can escape bad teaching, but they cannot escape the bad assessment. So it's very rugi, because you teach very good, you have delivered very well, but finally the marks that will interpret the student's ability is coming from the assessment that we not check the validity and reliability. The assessment that is not aligned with the teaching and learning. The assessment that is not aligned with program outcomes. So finally that we get the result from the assessment that is not valid, although we have a very good skill in teaching. In fact, if you are not a good lecturer in terms of delivery, students are not worried at all, because maybe they can refer to Google, maybe they can do their own searching information, maybe they can do some discussion with their friends or other lecturers. Okay, but when come to assessment, students have no right to change, maybe especially for the final exam. Okay, so they just have to answer, although maybe they did not learn the questions, the exam in the teaching and learning process. Okay, so I also was asked by the secretariat to share with others about the award that I got 2018 from the Ministry of Education. That time is Dr. Mazli. Okay, so before that, maybe I can show you some of the videos. Okay. So you can see how tired I am during the videos, because it was recorded one day before the okay, deadline. Oh, sorry.
Doktor,
Ya,
video ni memang tak ada audio kah?
sorry.
Audio memang tak ada kah? Untuk video?
Ada. Oh, tak dengar ya?
Tak dengar audio.
Oh. Kenapa Okey, saya minta maaf, saya tak tahu pula tak dengar audio. Okey. Sebab saya terus pergi dekat YouTube sebenarnya. Okey, saya terus pergi dekat YouTube. Okey. So, okey, ada share video. Nanti saya share link, ada ni, ada dalam slide. Okey. So, ini adalah sebenarnya projek yang saya lakukan. Semasa ni adalah sebelum saya pegang pengurus peneliti di UTM. Sebelum tu saya berada sebagai pengurus akademik di bahagian UG. Jadi saya menggunakan data yang saya ada ini untuk pada waktu itu bersama dengan bos saya pada waktu itu, Prof. Dr. Syafri. Jadi saya sebenarnya pada waktu itu saya diminta untuk membina satu rubrik yang boleh digunakan oleh kesemua pensyarah untuk subjek kursus umum universiti. Jadi pada waktu itu saya memilih untuk buat subjek-subjek untuk pembelajaran core curriculum, COQ lah. Jadi cadangan saya kepada sesiapa yang nak masuk akri, sebenarnya kalau nak nampak harapan tu lebih cerah, dia perlulah sesuatu yang dah berlaku setelah menampakkan kesan. Okay, setelah menampakkan kesan. Maksudnya bukan sedang berlaku. Kalau katakan kita baru implement pada semester ini dan belum ada result, so kita boleh plan untuk masuk akri tu tahun depan, bukan tahun ini. Okay, jadi macam yang saya masuk akri ni, kebetulan projek saya ni memang saya dah buat lebih daripada 2 tahun. Okay, Sebab akri yang saya masuk ini adalah akri yang pertama dibuat yang dianjurkan oleh KPM khususnya untuk pentaksiran alternatif. Okay. Jadi ini adalah rational project saya. Okay, di mana saya hendak memperkasakan I want to empower the assessment. Okay, why I want to empower the assessment? Because when I was there as holding the admin position, I realized that many of lecturers, when we say the thought course, they make the thought course like an assessment, but actually it's evaluation. As I said in my early in my talk just now, when the thought course, actually we as a lecturer, we have to do the assessment. What is assessment means that you have to check. So when I was here, I made all the lecturers compulsory to give the evidence that they check their students' work. To make it as assessment, not evaluation. That's why I said I want to empower the assessment, because I want to make sure that students are given the opportunity to develop. We are given students a few opportunity to improve their works. Okay, not just give at the first week and submit at the 14th week, week 14th, and suddenly we give mark. Okay, so of course the next one, that time we want to develop the students' skills through the assessment. So this is we call as assessment for learning. Okay, so it involves the authentic assessment. Why authentic assessment? Because students will do the activities in the real scenes, real scenario, real world. Okay, and then the learning is a meaningful learning. Why meaningful learning? Because they have to develop the knowledge by their own and happen the transfer knowledge here. The transfer knowledge here happens between the transfer knowledge by the students to the community, and also the transfer knowledge from the lecturers to the students. Okay? And because this is out assessment, so in that time, I was informed that one of the strength of my project is because I tackle the project psychometrically. Means that I have an evidence that the rubric that I develop is valid and reliable. Okay, so this is the project approach. Because this is one of the criteria needed in the ACRI form. Okay, means that you must have your some of theory or framework, okay, that underpinning of your project. So I'm using the service learning model, which is serve and learn is both equal. We have the big serve or small learn, which is if the big serve, small learn means that it's like you just go to the community, you help them to clean up the schools, okay? That one is the serve is big, the learn is small. But if the serve and learn is equal, means that the learning and the service is equal. At the same time, students give the service to the community, but they also have something to be learned, okay, through the project. So for the assessment itself, I'm using the theory, item response theory, which is this is the psychometrical approach. And for the learning and teaching itself, I'm using the constructivism theory, which is students have to develop their own knowledge based on their own experience through the service learning. So this is the conceptual framework, okay? So how this alternative assessment being assessed? Okay, so of course the observation of the score will be happen more than two times. So have first score, second score, which is the score is given by the lecturers. Have two lecturers here in this class, so have two scores, and also by the students. For your assessment, for your information, I am using the peer assessment here. The blind peer assessment means that I don't know who are the other two of my friends that assess me. So I make it compulsory in my class for the students to wear the name tag. And on the name tag will be written the full name, because I don't want students to measure someone else. Okay. For your information, for the general course, khusus umum in UTM, the students in the class are coming from the various faculties, so they don't know each other very well. That's why I make compulsory for them to wear the tag. If they are from the same class, same section, no problem, they know very much. But okay, and we also want to observe the students, so we have to make sure that this week who are the students that we aim to observe. So we will aim for that particular students only for that week. So every week we do the assessment for the different students. Okay. All right. So from the first and second score, we will do some remedial and enrichment process, which is we will call the students who perform not so good, who has to be improved in their generic skills, okay? And then for the third observation, which is happened in week 12, okay? Normally students will perform better. I can say perform better compared to the first and second observation. So when I said it is average of the third score, it's not the average of this score, first score, second score, third score. No. For skills, generic skills, it is unfair if you give the score based on the average of the whole marks. It's unfair. Because for the first week or second week, they are in the process to develop this score 1 and score 2. Maybe they got C, maybe they got D. But after the remedial, after some improvement, okay, they will perform in this score 3. So what I mean the score 3 average here is the score 3 average between the two lecturers and two students. Not the score of second score, first score and third score. Because it is biased for skills. Okay, let's say you have a communication skills in first year. The first year student got D, but in the fourth year students got A. If you average the D and the A, student will got C, for example, or B. But actually the performance of their communication skills when they are at the fourth year is A, not B, not C. That is what I mean, that sometimes we cannot use the average, especially for the skills. Okay, and sometimes average will lead the misleading information actually. Okay, this is how I'm using the item response theory analysis in analyzing the validity of the rubric. So I'm using the item response theory, which is the construct validity. Okay, the raw value explained by measure is 81.7, means that my rubric can explain 81.7 of the criteria needed. Let's say I want to measure communication skills. So my rubric can measure 81.7% of the variance in communication skills. Means have another maybe 19% or 18% of the criteria that cannot be embedded, cannot be measured using that rubric. So normally here we need at least 40%. Okay, so this is the what we call as for the eigenvalue to prove the the dimensionality of the rubric. So this is the reliability of the rubric. So I'm using the rush measurement model, which is give you not only the item reliability, but also give you the person reliability and item separation and person separation. So this is the generic skills that being assessed in this project. Okay, this is the team working, leadership, adaptability, and also the global citizen. Okay, so how students' involvement in this project? First, it happened the peer assessment. Second, the service learning by the students and the third one is the knowledge transfer from the students towards the community. Okay, so this is the project impact. Okay, as I said to you, this is assessment. So you have to have more than one attempt. You have to have more than one score. So you can see that, for example, this is for one student. Okay, this is for one student. I don't remember the name, but the blue one is the mark or the score given by the lecturers, and the orange color is marks given from the students. So this is the leadership one by the lecturers, leadership one by the first student, leadership one by the second student. Okay, leadership 2 and leadership by the lecturers, first student and second student, the blind assessment. So same goes here, and we can see that from first to the third score, the score is become better. Okay. And also do some impact here using the t-test, okay, pet sample t-test for the pre-test and for the post-test from the first score, second score, and the third score. Okay. And this shows that, this shows that the pre-score and this is the post-score. So here shows that when the item is at the top of the, at the top location, it means that that item is the most difficult item to be performed by the students. So we can see that all the pre is at the top location compared to the post. So it means that after the first, second guidance from the lecturers, the students feels that to perform the most difficult item now is not so difficult. Now the pre-GC one is here. Okay, means after some guidance from the lecturers, after some activities and sharing doing among the students, the generic skills will be better from the pre-test and the post-test. So this is some of the suggested things that if you want to do this project again, which is to apply the multifaceted analysis using the interactor reliability. So this is actually the template from ACRI, means that you have to give some suggestions what to be improved, to improve from your existing project. Okay, and maybe I said I can develop the system, which is the system now is developed already after the 2 years ACRI 2018. The first one also being done, alhamdulillah. The auto generates for student also being done, alhamdulillah. So the rubric is being expanded for the other generic skill. This one is under development. So let's say I want to enter for the next ACRI, which is I cannot because that's the term, I think, for those who already win the ACRI award, you cannot enter for the next one. But maybe I can give this to my friends. So maybe I can ask them to highlight more on the multifaceted and the auto-generated system that still capture the validity and the reliability of the assessment. Okay. So this is how important the assessment is actually. Remember, assessment is not only the work that we do every day. It's actually something that being measured, okay, by the creator, which is we have to give students the justice in assessment. So if you say assessment, make sure that the instrument is valid. You give them more than one time because this is assessment, one time to attempt. Make sure that you guide the students for the betterment. Okay, so before that, some things to ponder. Okay, we have to make sure that our CLO involve the alternative assessment. Okay, teaching strategies of formative assessments related to alternative assessment. Okay, make sure alternative assessment is used to measure the learning outcome. Okay, is aligned. Tools that you use to get the score is aligned with the alternative assessment that you used, and make sure you think how you make sure that your tools is really valid and reliable. This is very important because like this, if let's say we do some research but we are using the invalid instrument, we put the data in the software. The software cannot detect for us either the instrument is valid or not actually. Okay, it only can read the repeatedness, the reliability, the accuracy of the data only, but not the validity. The reliability, maybe yes. If we are using the wrong instrument to measure the research, and let's say someone read our articles, they don't know that our instrument is wrong. Okay, they only see our findings. But unluckily, when we use the invalid and unreliable tools, it will produce the score. It looks like that you are measuring your height, but you are using the weighing scale. Okay, the score are there, but it's not valid. Okay, so what do you think the advantages of your implemented alternative assessment? Okay, so do you think that your alternative assessment that you use for your class is really can measure the outcome that you want to measure? What are the challenges that you face? Of course, I believe that majority of the lecturers said it needs time. Yeah, of course. So make sure that in the class, we only teach them something important. The thing that is not important, the concept, let them read at home. Okay, use the time wisely. Conclude that your alternative assessment fall under which ladder? The first ladder, only summative assessment. The second ladder, periodically formative assessment. Or the third ladder, which is flexible assessment. So what is flexible assessment? The flexible alternative assessment, okay, which is, okay, the first model is bento style, and the second is buffet style. So what is bento style? Bento style, student can choose between several preset assessment options like in the bento boxes on restaurant menu. Okay, you offer a small number of overall choices, but some variety within each options. This is an example. For example, students have identical tasks and due dates, but choose from grade weighting options. For example, students are asked to choose a marking scheme from among the following. Let's say, I think I am the one who can perform in exam very well. Okay, so I want to take exam and I want my exam to be 45 marks. My project 30 marks and my writing 25 marks. But let's say the students think that I'm not good in final exam, but I'm good in performance based. So we give them the choice, which is their final exam is 25%, their project is 30% or 45%. Choose either emphasize on project or writing, and their writing is 45 or 25%. So this is what we call as flexible assessment. Remember the fairness, the picture just now? The fairness doesn't mean that all have to do the same weights, but all have to do something that appropriate according to their ability. So in this case, this is what we call as flexible assessment. Means that you give them some menu, exam, project, and writing, but you give them to choose the weight. The weight is the one that you state, so they can choose which weight that they want to be measured. But make sure it's measuring the same PLO, okay, program outcomes. So this is some guideline, but this guideline is not fixed. You can inform the student in the first week. Allow students to switch between different grade weighting schemes at any point up to the last day class. Okay, students choose based on their current strength and interest, and it can reduce student anxiety and increase self-reflection. So actually this is the project that I'm doing now. Okay, maybe for the next ACRI. Okay, next is the buffet style. Okay, buffet styles, students individualize choices from a wider assessment. Okay, and may also have responsibility for choosing due dates and the grade weighting, okay, for each task. Okay, this is examples. Okay, you get them, you offer them so many assessment menu. You have final exam, journal critics, research essay, field work, short seminar, article writing, portfolio. So we as the lecturer, we have to prepare all the instruction for final exam, journal critic, research essay, fieldwork project, short seminar, article writing, and portfolio, and provide also the rubric. So you can ask them to choose the weight here. So it's more flexible compared to the bento. Okay. So students have to fill in an agreement form in week 2, but they have the opportunity to make certain changes until a specified date. So not like bento you can change until at the end of the last class, but buffet cannot. Okay, because buffet is more on something like big. If you want to change, then we become like headache for us, okay, to give them the next different task. Okay, some rules should be set. For example, not being able to choose any task more than once, only once. Not being able to eliminate a task after the deadline, and only being able to modify a deadline for non-emergency reason a week or more in advance. Okay, so this is actually how we support our ministry by doing the flexible learning and flexible assessment. And have to remember also, not necessary if someone say that I'm doing the flexible learning, but not necessarily they are doing the flexible assessment. Flexible learning is more on you can do your class at any time, anywhere, anyhow, right? But flexible learning is not necessarily someone do flexible learning, they will do flexible assessment. In fact, have some research say lecturer that do the flexible learning is more difficult to do the flexible assessment because they can control their students, because some students are at different place, some students are using the different resources. So finally they're using the fixed assessment, not flexible assessment. Okay, I think that's all. Maybe I can open for the questions. Fadlina. Sorry.
Okay, Doktor. Thank you, Dr. Adibah.
Sama-sama. Any question, please?
Ada soalan tak?
Or maybe someone want to share about their alternative assessment? Also can? Okay, the equality and assessment. Okay, first of all, okay, as I said before, we have to control it's measuring the same program outcomes. Okay, and we have to remember one thing. The assessment is actually not about comparing students with students. The assessment is actually about comparing students with their strengths. So let's say I am good in writing, or I'm good in answering the final exam. So I'm choosing final exam as the main thing to be emphasized. So now when you say the equality in assessment, it's very fair actually. First, why fair? Because you are given them the same final exam, just the weight of assessment different. Why you give the different weight of assessment? Because they think they cannot perform better in final exam. That's why they choose project. Okay, but the exam, the project, and also the writing, the rubric are same. Only the weight of assessment different. Okay, if like in buffet style, you also give them, we call as in education, we call this as the positive development model. Means that we emphasize on their strength, the positive one. Okay, let's say for example just now, I like to do the short seminar. Okay, and you give the weight. We control here the weight. Okay, the short seminar. Okay, so compared to final exam, I don't want. So one of the things that must be taken into account of the lecturer is you have to make sure that all of this menu is appropriate enough to measure your PO. For example, I want to measure students' knowledge in doing research. I can ask them to do interview. I can ask them to do some essay in final exam. I can ask them to do some mini scale research. I can ask them to do the fieldwork project. However, you have to make sure that the weight of the task is appropriate enough in terms of the severity tau. Maksudnya not the weight of the mark, I mean the weight of the task itself. The instruction must be fair. Not so easy for journal critics, not so easy for research essay. Okay, so actually this is how what we say the equality and fairness. It's actually flexible is because we have to change our mindset that assessment is not to compare mark between students, it's to compare between the PLO and the student's ability. Okay, the rubric. Okay, hopefully Dr. Noliza, if you want to Okay, may I know how many students you have, Doctor, when you use bento?
Because when you were explaining just now, I was just wondering if students were to choose their own menu, that it will be very tedious for you to, identify. If you have like a small group of students, then maybe it's okay because you know your students by heart. But when you have like 100 people or 1,000 students in a class, so how do you address that?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Noliza. Okay, okay. My previous class, I applied the bento style. I have 80 students, okay, 80 students, two sections. Let's say 40-40. Let's say 40-40. I entered the class, I said, okay, these are 3 assessments that I will give you. Final exam, mini scale research, and also project. Have 3. So you choose. You choose according to your capability, I say. So student choose. This mark for final exam, for for project, and for my mini scale research. Okay. So from the weight, finally I will transfer to the score for the PLO. Okay, for example, my class, I'm measuring 40% for PO1. Okay, so and PO1 is measuring using final exam. So from the raw score, composite score that I got from the marks that chosen by the students, so I just transform to the score for the weight for the each PLO score. So if you ask me, is it difficult or not? For me, actually, it is something realistic because I did it. Just because of the COVID, little bit distracted because I cannot have because they cannot go to the field work. That's the problem. They cannot go to the field work. So finally, I have to change the rubric from the field work to the community in online community. So instead of they are doing the project in the real field work, now they are using the project in the online community. So that is a little bit distracted because I have to change the rubric quite in the middle of the class. Okay, I think after 8 weeks. Okay, weeks 8 of the class. Okay, okay, Dr. Noliza, thank you for your feedback. May I know how many students you have, Doctor, when you use the bento and buffet style? Okay, buffet style, actually, I plan to do next semester. But as next semester, still, we conducted online. So maybe I plan to do the other semester lah, when can do have a face-to-face. So buffet style I'm not yet implemented. So the bento style, yes, I have implemented. I have the result already. And yeah, inshallah, if have time, can publish some paper and maybe can do some guidelines how to make it as a practice. Okay, Dr. Noazlina, Dr. Adibah, I might misunderstood about formative assessment. Can final marks of formative assessment key in as carry marks? Okay, okay, let's say you have formative assessment. Your formative assessment, let's say, is the assignment project. Okay, so you are asking me, can the final marks of the project be keyed in as the carry marks? My answer is yes, because finally these carry marks will be added with your final exam. So my concern here is, if you do the formative assessment for the project, but you don't have the few score, okay, the few score that as an evidence that the score is the progress of the student's ability. But in this case, Dr. Azlina, of course, we should have one score finally to be insert or key in as the carry marks. Let's say 60 marks. So the 60 marks, 30% is from the assignment project. Okay, so before you key in the mark in assignment or project, okay, first you cannot use the average. Let's say you have draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, draft 4. So you only take the draft 4. But to get the draft 4 marks ni, if you don't have the kind of assessment, the formative assessment, believe me, the mark is not reached to the maximum capability of the student. That's why we need a few time of checking, monitoring students. So the final mark that you key in in the carry marks is the best mark of the formative assessment. Okay, Dr. Noliza said, I see differs in how they choose the assessment. Yes, but correct, Dr. Noliza.
Okay, Doctor, one more question. When you said just now, we have to actually from time to time check on the progress.
Yeah.
It's positive. And okay, if let's say we have problems with some students who are very reluctant to cooperate with you,
Yeah.
adalah nilai setitik kan.
Yeah. Rosaklah susu-susunya.
How do you actually address that kind of behavior?
Understand. Okay, thank you, Dr. Noliza. Okay, as I said before, the problem only happen either two. Either the students do not send the draft, or the second one is if we not check the assignment. So in Dr. Noliza question just now, if the student is the one who don't want to give the cooperation. Okay, actually I face this very much. Okay, at first, especially in the group work, just imagine group work, because the group send the draft and including his name. That's why I'm very much recommended, if you do the group work, some portion of the assessment tools is the peer assessment. Okay, and normally when I ask the students to do by group, they will give us like a minute meeting and so on. So let's say in the week 4 or week 5, you realize have some students do not give the cooperation. Of course, you will call them. Okay, them means many. Call them. Ask why. Ask why. This is the process of human touch in assessment. Okay, human touch in assessment. So, have sometimes why they do not perform, or why they reluctant to submit, because they don't have that kind of cooperation within the teams. So maybe we can help them. Okay, for your information, I love to give the group by my own. So I want to see how they manage their time. If not, they will choose the group as they like. Okay, so the students which is not perform well, maybe always not in the group with the students which is have a good, better performance. Or all the students with the bad attitude sometimes in the one group. So normally my practice is I'm the one who appoint the class, the activity, the group. So I have a few activity groups, which is the activity groups I mix the high achievers, low achievers, and moderate achievers, and the students that doing the activity for the assignment. Okay, Dr. Noliza, this is where the PA, what you call PA?
Homogeneous group, you determine the type of members in the group.
Yeah, I determine this classroom, this group, I determine from which course, have Malay, Chinese, India, have someone is good CGPA, someone is low CGPA, I mix. So that is assessment. Assessment is cooperative. Okay, Dr. Noliza, actually your question is more on the role of lecturer to the teachers. So what I do, I have one case, one student, she cannot perform well in online task. Then then one day she messaged me, Doctor, have I submitted the test? I feel like, why she asked me like this? And then when I messaged her, I said, why? Then she said, Doctor, I have a problem with online learning. Okay, my mother, she said, she is OKU of mental OKU. Every time I want to open my laptop and to do, my mom will distract me. She wants to play together with the laptop. And then when I check the background, I just know that the mother has a very depression. You just imagine in the same year, the husband passed away and 2 of the children passed away. So sangat kesian. And I just know that the students actually come from the B40, quite not B40, it's B40, but doesn't have any help from any financial resources. So finally I give her to her penasihat academy, we call PA. So the PA also gives some some help from the valid resources. You know, I have also one case where the students cannot talk at all. In the class, when do presentations, she has a very bad stage fright. Cannot talk at all. So I called the PA, the penasihat academic. I said, please send the student to the to any society of that involve so much communication. So this is the role of PA, penasihat academic. So we in the class, we find that she has the difficulty on developing some generic skills, but we ask the PA to advise her what to do. Because in the class, we did not teach them how to speak. We did not teach them how to build the good communication skills. No. So that one is actually they have to do from extracurricular. Okay, I have so much. Okay, Dr. Adibah, may I know if alternative assessment have lesser time for student learning time spent by students compared to traditional assessment? I find that when lecturers use other assessment than exam-based, students complain that they are spending more time to complete because they want to make their work perfect. What is your opinion for the SLT for any form of assessment to be chosen by lecturer? Okay, first, actually, now KPM is more to flexible learning. Previously, we are saying that if your credit is 2 credit, you must have 2 times 14 weeks, which is you must have 2 times 14, 28 face-to-face learning. Okay. Actually, when you apply the flexible learning, it's not necessary for you to have 28 hours face-to-face learning. So you can use the time. For example, maybe you meet the student every 2 weeks once, and every time you meet the students, let's say you have 2 hours. So 1 hour only you do some maybe. If me in my class, if I have 2 hours, I would only teach 30 minutes. The rest of 1 hour and 30 minutes, I will use to check their draft. I will discuss with them and do some activities which is alternative assessment like case study and so on. So as I said before, Doctor, we don't in OBE, we don't emphasize on the syllabus. Okay, we feel that we not touch the syllabus yet, we not touch the syllabus yet. In OBE, we are thinking of achieve the outcome. So plan our teaching and learning process using the learning outcome. Maybe don't be surprised, after the 3rd week of our teaching and learning, we can achieve already our first course learning outcome. Okay, that's why me in the class, I never teach them the concept thing. They have to learn. I only come to the class, activity, and the students who do not do the pre-reading, for sure, they cannot do the activity. So at first, they didn't read because they thought many lecturers said, do your pre-reading. But later on in the class, it's like nothing to do with the pre-reading. But me, at the first class, I said to them, you have to do the pre-reading or else you will be like left out from the class because you cannot do nothing. Okay, you can do nothing. So the second week, I enter the class, I say, okay, activity. And I see that some of them like so blur, cannot do anything. And it's proven that because they do not do any pre-reading. You know what's my activity? Very easy. My activity is, please develop a few questions from what you read. Of course they cannot do. Not I giving the question for them to answer. Please develop or create a few questions from what you read and you maybe do not understand. You see, if they do not read, they cannot do. The 3rd week also, I do something that they need to do pre-reading. And after that, the 4th week, 5th week, 6th week, everyone will do the pre-reading. So no need for me to touch the simple thing like concept, theory. I only touch something that more on application and something more critical to be discussed. Okay, so about SLT, it's no problem. As long as you make sure that the SLT is not exceed, if 2 credits, not exceed 80 credits. 2 credits, not exceed 80 hours. So you can be flexible in the face-to-face SLT. So let's say 2 credits, 2 times 14. Okay, not necessarily you have to meet them 28 hours. Maybe from 28 hours, you only meet them 16 hours. The rest, you ask them to do some kind of discussion. But you are there, do discussion, not only class 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 delivery, not only the lecture.
Like
Okay,
so-
Doctor. Okay, thank you, Dr. Muhammad Muhaizam Musa. Okay, Padlina, any questions?
Okay. From Dr. Baya Bazar Yusof, Dr. Adibah.
Okay, Doctor, when we employ a buffet style of assessment, are we not allowing students to strengthen certain skills? Are we not allowing students to strengthen while others may suffer, although may be important for their future careers? Thank you. Okay, you give them the different assessment, right? Maybe you have here. Okay. Okay. First of all, okay, maybe in your assessment menu, final exam can be excluded. Why? Okay, because final exam only can measure PLO for knowledge and cognitive only. Okay, so let's say your PLO that you want to measure is knowledge and cognitive, PLO1 and PLO2, KW and CG, then you can include the final exam. Okay, but let's say, okay, this is your formative assessment, the journal critic, research essay, fieldwork project, short seminar, article writing and portfolio. Okay, I'm focusing on this. You have to make sure this is only the assessment method, but all the assessment method will measure the same PLO, the same program outcomes. For example, you want to measure their practical skills. So make sure the rubric that you use for the journal critic, research essay, fieldwork, short seminar, article writing, and portfolio is suitable for that particular PLO. So let's say journal critics is not suitable for that kind of PLO. So then don't offer journal critics for that PLO. Don't offer journal critics to measure practical skills. So practical skills you can offer fieldwork project, mini scale research, short seminar, portfolio. So this is example. But when you want to give the assessment menu, make sure the assessment menu is appropriate with your PO, program outcome. So there is no issue that we want to develop the different skills. Okay, we will measure the same skills. Okay, but of course, when they do the different kind of assessment, there is what we call as in-tech knowledge, or the skills that we are not measure but they can develop by their own. So it's normal. But to be fair, we develop the same PO according to the different assessment, where this assessment is choosing by the students according to their strength. So in terms of career also no problem, because when the when the program outcomes is same, something that you have to measure. So of course the PO is aligned with your program educational objective, which is PEO. So PEO is of course something important for their future careers. So this is how we as lecturer be smart enough to choose the assessment method to measure the same PLO. Okay, Dr. Biabazai.
Any more question?
Okay, Dr. Adibah, what do you think in your find this situation? One particular CLO is measuring too many PLOs. Okay, first, I am not encouraged to use the same CLO to measure the different types of PLO. We have two types of PLO. Technical skills, which is PLO1, PLO2, PLO3, cognitive, knowledge and practical skills. And we have the generic skills, from communication skills until for example, entrepreneur and ethics. The rest is generic skills. For me, if you want to measure many PLOs in one CLO, just make sure that the generic skills with generic skills, the practical skills, the technical skills with technical skills. So it's easy. The second one is, if you see my examples here, okay, if you see my example here, this CLO is measuring actually more than one PLO. But, okay, the PLO is about the critical thinking, generic skills, is about the team working, generic skills, and about the ethics, generic skills. And it can be measured in one assessment method, which is service learning. So we as a lecturer, we have to make sure, does our assessment method is good enough, is sufficient to measure so many PLOs or not? If service learning, you know, service learning is something very big. You need a few months to plan, and when you go for service learning, it will take 2 or 3 days, right? So many things that you can measure from the service learning. But if your assessment is final exam, of course, no. Of course, you only can measure one one PLO, which is cognitive. Okay, but if let's say you want to measure one PLO, two PLO in one CLO, so make sure the PLO is same, generic with generic, technical with technical. Okay, and remember the guidelines from the Ministry of Education. They said that the good CLO is not more than 3 to 5 course learning outcome, and it's good for one course learning outcome. It's good for one course information. Not in one course is not measuring more than 4 PLO. 4 PLO means maybe 2 technical skills, 2 generic skills. Okay. Okay, for your information, the course that I show you here, this is general course, subject umum. And for general course, we are not measuring the technical skills. We only measuring the generic skills. Okay, I think everyone know that khusus umum hanya mengukur kemahiran generic. Okay, alright. Oh, we cannot see your screen, Doctor. Oh yalah, I stopped sharing already. Forgot. Okay. Okay, this one I said, okay. So this one CLO have more than one PLO. But all the PLO here are generic skills. Okay. So if you are beginner, okay, if you are beginner, it's advisable for you to have one CLO, one PLO, and one assessment method. So easy for you to assess. But let's say you are well versed, means you are really can internalize what you do. I think you can have one CLO but measuring more than one PLO. But easier if one CLO measuring the same kind of PLO. Technical with technical, generic with generic. Okay. And remember, sometimes one assessment can measure more than one PLO. Like service learning, only one assessment but can measure 3 PLO. So we save time also. Okay, but how we as a lecturer want to develop a good rubric using one assessment method, but we have to have more rubrics. Rubric for rubric for team working, rubric for communication skill, rubric for ethics, for example. So the rubric must have for each PLO. Okay, although one only assessment. Nak access student macam-macam. Yeah, sometimes we're ambitious, terlupa diri je. Okay, that's why Dr. Noliza, this is very important for the program coordinator to give the PLO logically, appropriately, according to the course nature. Okay, penyelaras program, you cannot do the mapping by your own actually. You have to give respect to others lecturer in your panel, sit down together and ask their opinion. Do you think that your course is good enough to measure entrepreneurship? Do you think that your course is good enough to measure communication skills? So we divide equally, fairly, based on the. Okay, yes, fortunately we do good. Okay, I know UUM is very good in assessment. You have a very good assessment expert also there. I know that. Okay. Yeah, good, Dr. Naliza. Yeah. So from the first, do not make too much PLO under one course. Okay. Okay, Fadlina, any more questions?
Any more question? I think that's all, Dr. Adibah.
Okay,
Thank you
thank
very
you
much,
so
Dr.
much.
Adibah, and thank you
Thank you
everyone.
everyone. Thank you and sorry for any mistakes. Thank you.
Adibah, thank you
Okay,
TLC.
terima kasih Doktor.
Thank you, Dr. Adibah.
Terima kasih Dr. Khaliza.
Thank you Dr. Adibah.
Welcome Doktor.
Dr. Adibah,
Ya,
boleh share slide tadi tak? Untuk kita
boleh boleh. Boleh saya beri kat Fadlina
Okay, Dr. Thank you.
Okay, saya leave dulu. Assalamualaikum.
Salam, terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Sama.